Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of Motorcyclist MC Commute for 2021. And today we will be ringing in the new year in a big way, yet in a small, approachable package, that being the Kawasaki Versys-X 300, as you see here beside me. Now, this motorcycle is a perfect segue into the adventure touring segment for beginners, for less experienced riders, or riders just looking to get into that class without breaking the bank of a flagship model like a BMW R1250 GS or a Triumph Tiger 1200 or maybe even KTM Super Adventure. So we got a lot to talk about. Why don't we hit the road? All right, everyone, the Kawasaki Versys-X 300. Now this is actually a 2020 model, which you'll see here with the paint scheme. It has the pearl blizzard white metallic carbon gray paint scheme, I believe is what Kawasaki calls it. But overall, I really like the look of this motorcycle. It's a really premium feel for being a lightweight entry motorcycle. You have the rugged kind of rally bike styling. You have a big 19-inch front wheel and 17-inch rear out back that'll allow you to kind of go over some obstacles should you go off-road. IRC trail winter tires. They have a little bit of tread, ready to tackle those off-road conditions like we talked about. But overall, I really like the styling of this motorcycle. This particular test unit comes with a few accessories to really conquer those off-road conditions. Obviously, you got the engine crash guard, or the crash guard right here. You have auxiliary LED headlights up front, hand guards. You have 17-liter Kawasaki additional hard cases. So this thing is fitted up and ready for the adventure. So why don't we get on this thing and take it for a spin? Let's fire this Versys-X 300 up and get on the road. Pretty mellow power plant, and we'll talk about that as we get on the road, but nothing too intimidating with this motorcycle, nor does it really draw a whole lot of attention in that engine department. The Kawasaki Versys-X 300, obviously the heart of this motorcycle comes with a 296 liquid-cooled dual overhead cam parallel twin engine that's actually derived from the Ninja 300 Supersport machine that left the market in 2000 at the end of 2017, being replaced by the Kawasaki Ninja 400. So with Kawasaki carrying over that 296cc power plant, with it you get really approachable power, really easy to use. I actually measured this Versys-X 300 on our in-house motorcyclist dyno, with it putting out 32.3 horsepower at the rear wheel and something like 16.7 foot-pounds of torque. But with that comes a really flat torque curve, which makes this a very flexible motorcycle getting around town in, maybe not ideal gear selection. It allows you to really take advantage of what the motor has to offer. But speaking on that same note, you have to make the comparison, and a lot of people will make the comparison rather, to the Kawasaki Ninja 400, which the last time we had on our dyno actually produced roughly 12 more horsepower and 10 more foot-pounds of torque. That just gives it a little bit more character. It doesn't feel like you run out of power so easily. You always have power, appropriate power for the situation, and can get yourself in and out of situations. Now, with the Versys 300, I feel sometimes that as a rider, if I were to be a newer rider, or just a rider in general, it's appropriate and it's powerful, and it has enough to get around town and do what you need to do, but it also grows long in the tooth pretty quickly. I feel like, it's enticing for a little bit, but there comes a point where I just need a little bit more oomph, and we'll talk about that as we continue down the road. So why wouldn't Kawasaki just carry over the Ninja 400 power plant to the Versys? Well, it's not exactly so simple. The chassis architecture on the Ninja 400 versus the 300 is a little bit different, meaning Kawasaki would have had to re-engineer a completely brand new chassis for the Versys as well to adopt that power plant. Now, I would be a huge fan of the Kawasaki Versys 400 should Kawasaki ever make one. I think that it would strike a really good balance, give you plenty of capability for on and off road, and just be like a really kind of ultimate motorcycle. I really enjoy the Ninja 400. I think that it offers a lot of approachability for newer, less experienced riders, while also still a ton of fun for experienced riders. I have a blast when I take that thing anywhere. And I think part of the reason why the Versys has kind of grown long in the tooth already in terms of just the fun factor with it is, and it's a really simple fix, is Kawasaki has re-geared the Versys 300 in comparison to the outgoing or the previous Kawasaki Ninja 300 Supersport, to give it a little bit more bite, a little bit more acceleration, a lower gearing for those off-road situations where things might be a little bit slower than you might be doing at a racetrack on the Ninja 300 or the canyons on a Ninja 300. But what I'm going to have to say is I think they took it a step, maybe a couple steps too far. I always feel like I'm riding around in a very high gear, and I always seem to want more. Even here, we'll just start in first from a stop, and you just kind of go through the gears so quickly that it makes me want to re-gear the motorcycle. Like I said, that's a pretty easy fix. I might go down a couple teeth in the rear just to lengthen that gearing out. But even when we get on the freeway here, you'll see that the motor just spins at a very high RPM, which in turn kind of robs it of fuel mileage and doesn't really give you the acceleration you need to get in and out of situations. But overall, really approachable power plant with good connection to the throttle. I think that it's very user friendly, and it doesn't necessarily get you into too much trouble. Well, it's still very capable and very fast at the same time. So Kawasaki has also given this an assist slipper clutch, and that essentially helps with clutch pull and getting you off the lights without with lowering the risk of stalling. But in a sense, again, I feel like Kawasaki is maybe taking it too far and trying to lighten that clutch pull, and what it's affected is the feel of engagement. It's very hard to feel, to have good clutch feel, to understand where the clutch actually engages. So sometimes you find yourself slipping the clutch, especially if you pull up to a gear or pull up to a light or a stop sign in a gear too tall, maybe in second or third gear, and you're trying to slip it to get away. So, you know, kudos to Kawasaki for giving it that light clutch pull, which is attractable to beginners, but at the same time, sometimes it feels like you're wearing 2 or 3 pairs of gloves and you can't quite understand where that engagement happens. Overall, though, Kawasaki Versys 300, I have to credit to a very comfortable riding position, just very neutral overall, nothing too aggressive, nothing too relaxed either, which really kind of complements the chassis too. I've also found this chassis to be, you know, in the same boat, very neutral, maybe doesn't carve corners like you might find on a sport bike, but it definitely isn't lacking in that sense either. It rides down the road pretty incredibly smooth. It has a 41 millimeter non-adjustable fork up front, a single mono shock in the back, and I think Kawasaki has struck pretty good balance. I think that especially for road conditions like we're riding this morning, they struck a good balance in finding that small bump compliance versus big hit support. Now, I have to say that I think, you know, when you do hit those big hits, sometimes it's a little bit soft, which it does tell me that should I take this motorcycle off-road, maybe it would be it would feel a little bit more softer, it would feel a little bit softer there, which could grow tiresome and maybe bottom the thing out occasionally. A relatively low 32.1 inch measured seat height also complements itself to a very kind of just approachable, attractive chassis. I'm 5'7". I can comfortably put both feet on the ground at stoplights and kind of maneuver my way through traffic should I need to. 410 pounds fully fueled with those 17-liter hard bags and all of the accessories fitted to this motorcycle equipped. So relatively lightweight, and you don't really, to me, it feels more lightweight than the numbers suggest when you get it navigating through traffic or through corners. So to me, very approachable. You can really see that I'm from first to third gear by the time I even get across a stoplight. So that goes back to that gearing that we talked about. I think it would be a pretty easy fix. Typically, when I've been riding this bike around the last couple weeks, I really haven't even been using first gear. I'd pull up to lights in second gear, and that to me feels, in a street scenario, really what I'd like to see out of first gear. This motorcycle also takes off in third gear with a little bit of clutch slip, but really no problem. So should you buy this motorcycle and you're basically going to ride it on the road around town or wherever you may go, I'd suggest maybe taking a couple teeth off the rear just to free it up. I do have to say that I really enjoy riding small bikes. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You know, you can kind of really get away with wailing on these bikes and kind of hauling butt and not really get yourself into trouble. You know, obviously, if you're on a bigger motorcycle, something like one of those flagship BMW R1250s or something, should you go full wide open throttle and kind of wail on it with the same aggression that I might be doing on this little Versys 300, I might be having a red light behind me and paying a traffic ticket. So I really enjoy these small bikes. Let's get this thing going. We're going to do this in second gear just to show you guys what this bike can do. Like, it's really almost perfect second gear getting off the stoplights. You know, I don't want to knock it too hard, because should you take this off-road in some pretty tricky conditions, that gearing might be appropriate. To be honest, I haven't gotten it off-road, but it might work out just fine. Third gear, no problem. No problem at all. And we're off. Kudos to a very neutral riding position, especially one with a little bit of a windscreen here. Just really comfortable. I enjoy this bike, and I enjoy very comfortable. The seat is also very comfortable. Sometimes I feel like at first few miles it feels a little stiff, but then after an hour in the saddle, I think it'll be very welcoming. It's a stiff to where it doesn't grow too soft, I should say. It doesn't really necessarily grow too soft and feels like you kind of sink into the seat and kind of causes discomfort. So I like that. Kudos, Kawasaki. We keep hitting just about every red light known to the Orange County area, it seems like, this morning. But what I have to say, what that tells me is the braking performance of this motorcycle really isn't half bad. I feel that there's plenty of power. See, here's another one right here. Plenty of power felt through the front brake, that single caliper up front. Though it does lack a little bit of feel at the brake lever, which could probably be pretty easily solved with a more aggressive brake pad compound. Just give you a little bit more feel through the lever. It also has rubber braided brake lines, which maybe steel could offer a little bit more consistency to especially if you were to take this motorcycle off-road and subject yourself to longer, harder braking durations. Coming up to a roundabout, let's lay this Versys 300 on its side and see what she's got. Come on, we're hitting all the lights this morning, man. Well, at least maybe that way we'll get a clear shot at the roundabout. Let's see here. We got clear racetrack in front of us. Let's go. Alright, so we talked about the chassis, very neutrally handling, 410 pounds fully fueled as this test unit sits. Very lightweight handling, if I'm being completely honest. Kind of just falls into the corner. We have those IRC tires up front, which do a good job. I feel like we have quite a little bit of grip. It absorbed that bump that's upset so many of the other motorcycles we've taken through there. So overall, I think it's a very neutrally well-balanced motorcycle that can carve just as well as you want it to. But now we're out on the highway, and this is where the Versys has kind of grown tiresome for me. We're doing 75 miles an hour, which typically, not in morning traffic, is just about getting you run over on the Southern California freeways. Everyone's doing about 110 miles an hour, trying to race each other to the nearest Starbucks. But we're doing about 75 miles an hour. We get back up, and this motorcycle spins at 9,000 RPM. If you want to go 80, 85, something that will seem a little bit safer, you're really spinning at close to 10,000 RPM, which only leaves you with about 2,000 RPM to work with before you run into redline, and that's in 6th gear, that's in top gear. So not only that, but it also affects the fuel mileage. Should you be riding about, I don't know, 75, 80 miles an hour, I see the fuel mileage, the active fuel mileage down here in the corner, drop to about mid-40s. Should you slow it down and kind of take it easy, you know, I've seen this motorcycle get about mid-50s in terms of miles per gallon. So it really does kind of grow tiresome, especially when you feel like you're kind of just trying to keep up with everyone and you don't really have the ability to just cruise down the highway. Now, talking about that fuel mileage, you got a big 4.5 gallon fuel tank, which is just I love the 4.5. I think it's appropriate. You can see I've done about 80 miles on my trip meter here, and I've only lost 2 bars. So, you know, speaking on that, roughly 50 miles per gallon on this, depending on the riding conditions, I'd say you could probably get close to 60 if you're just riding slow in the back roads. You can get a lot of range out of this fuel tank. You can get upwards of 200 miles should you ride appropriately to do so. Other than that, quite a calm, pleasant ride going down the highway. The mirrors offer good picture. They're pretty clear. They don't vibrate too much. Obviously, you have this windscreen up front, which is OEM fitted. Now, I wish that it had some sort of adjustment. There's part of me, I'm even a 5'7" structure, and there's part of me that wishes it was a little bit taller just to reduce some of the buffeting. If I tuck down a little bit, I can feel a lot of the buffeting go away. If I sit back up, I can feel it hit my chin and kind of lift my chin up. So I wish that there was some adjustment, or just that the windscreen was a little bit taller, but overall it's a very comfortable neutral ride. Now, hand guards, these are an accessory. I think these are $110 MSRP from Kawasaki. I appreciate these. You know, it's been getting cold out in this California weather, January, December. We've seen, you know, mid to low 60s, kind of really cold, freezing California weather. And I've appreciated the hand guards riding home at night, or, you know, when it really kind of gets chilly. Obviously, we have our dashboard up front with the analog tachometer over there on the left, which I really appreciate. There's something just so simple about analog tachometers that really always let you know where you're at in the RPM range. Then you have your little small LCD display over on the right with your gear indicator, fuel, water temp, your speed, your trips, all vital information that you need should you set out on your ride. Now, we also have an accessory DC outlet over on the left. Should you need to charge something, you have your auxiliary headlight switch over on the right. You can turn those headlights on and off very easily. Speaking of those headlights, those are like mid $400, $440, I believe, and they offer a good breadth of visibility, especially at night, obviously, and probably make the cars around you much more aware. But for $440, I did some quick research. You could find probably cheaper options, but yet high quality options on the aftermarket. That kind of goes along with the 17-liter hard cases equipped to this motorcycle as well. Those were also about mid $400, and like, honestly, they're quite flimsy and quite cheap. I feel like had I tipped this thing over in the dirt or taken a rock, like, they just kind of snap off, and they don't really offer a whole lot of usable space there either. I'll show you that when we get to the office. Anyways, we got one more corner there. Seems like we're always in traffic this morning, but that's okay. That's the way it goes here in Southern California. Anyways, decent feel from these IRC tires. I'm actually quite surprised with the understanding of the contact patch underneath me. Should I be riding this bike more on road than off, I would probably upgrade to something a little bit sportier to give me a little bit more feel, a little bit more grip, and a little bit more confidence. Almost to the motorcyclist offices. Well, I do have to say, even though I have minor complaints about the gearing, like I said, it's easily fixable. I think that you could, should you own this motorcycle, depending on the riding conditions that you're going to subject it to, re-gearing this motorcycle would be an easy yet effective modification. Overall, neutral riding position, neutral handling chassis. I think Kawasaki has really done a good job of offering an approachable, budget-friendly option to the adventure touring segment. Now, like I said earlier, I think that if and when we do see a Kawasaki Versys 400 using that Ninja 400 power plant with a few more extra ponies, a little bit more torque, really just making the motorcycle happy in all conditions, it's going to be a killer of the segment. And speaking of the segment, this motorcycle is going to compete with motorbikes like the Honda CB500X or the KTM 390 Adventure as well, which is, I feel like, sort of reset the benchmark maybe. Anyways, let's pull this thing off. I'm going to show you these bags one time. You got to use your key. Oops, wrong side. Not a whole lot of space. Can't fit a helmet, obviously. You can put a few tools. Honestly, I don't know if I'd put anything very valuable in there, just because it's just kind of flimsy, and you can't take these off without tools either. You can't slide them off. Anyways, one little gripe there. All right. Anyways, that's it for our time aboard the Kawasaki Versys-X 300. A very approachable option to the adventure touring segment without breaking the bank of those flagship motorcycles. Now, obviously, this 2020 model comes in at $5,499. That's with non-ABS. ABS model is $5,799. The 2021 model, $5,899. Now, when we look at the competition in the class, this is one of the cheaper options, and this will get you plenty of performance. Now, if budget is not necessarily a concern, but you're still looking at the small displacement category, I might take a look at a motorcycle like the CB500X and the KTM 390 Adventure that we mentioned. But if you just want to get in for a very approachable, easy to use platform. This Kawasaki Versys-X 300 is one to look at. All right, guys, if you like this video, be sure to give us a like, comment. We want to hear from you, and subscribe to the Motorcyclist YouTube channel. Head over to the motorcyclistonline.com site to read the full story about this Versys-X 300, and we'll deliver a lot more of these reviews in 2021. Take it easy, guys.